Okay, well, hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today on the job cost statement. We're going to take a look at the job cost statement and kind of take a deep dive into it and where are all the numbers coming from, and go over two brand new columns that we just had added to this report, which I feel like makes it a very well-rounded report to give project managers and accountants alike a full picture of where we're at financially on a project. So we're going to be taking a deep dive into all of those. But before we get started, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Tracy Van Dalsum. I'm the Vice President of Client Experience here. And many of you know me because I trained many of you in the Pasker platform that is now rebranded as RedTeam Go. I'm excited to be a part of the RedTeam family. And wanted to let you know, if you have any questions throughout the webinar today, please ask them. We wanted this to be a very interactive webinar today to answer some questions. The reason that we're having this is because we've been having some questions flooding in about this report. And so we just wanted to provide an opportunity for everyone to gain a little bit of clarification into this very powerful report. So if you have questions on your Zoom webinar toolbar, you'll see a Q&A button. If you'll use that to submit your questions. I'm flying solo today, so I don't have somebody helping me with the questions. So I've got them up on my second screen over here, and I'm going to be pausing periodically to take a look at the questions that we have coming in and try to answer them in real time for us as we're taking a look at the report. So take a look at that. Please don't send them through chat. If you see the chat, send them through the Q&As, because if we do that, then I'll be able to answer them after the webinar, and then I can send out some FAQs on the questions that we received and the answers, so I can give you a physical copy of the questions asked and answered, just so we can distribute that to everybody. So use the Q&A, and let's take a little look here. So I have the, I do want to make sure that I'm sharing my screen properly here. Type in the Q&A if you cannot see my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Give me a yes. Oh, you got your hands raised. I see them. Yes, Amy, Julie, Will, thanks. Hi, friends. Oh, it's like a family reunion today, you guys. I'm getting to see names of people I haven't talked to in forever. Thanks for joining. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so we are going to take a look at the job cost statement. I'm in a project that has been, it just started. I have one billing to my owner, and we're going to dive in and take a look at this report. So we're going to work our way top to bottom on this particular project. So this was a project that I started back in July. We'll see up here at our date range that we can pull this report on specific date ranges. So if I wanted to go back and see, well, what did this report say my profit was on October 2nd? I could run the report from July 7th to October 2nd and see what my profit was then versus what my profit is now. So you've got the date filter that you can apply up at the very top. And then our report is separated into two sections. So you'll notice that we've got the revenue expenses, the revenue section up top, which is this section right up here in white. And then we have our expenses section down below. So essentially anything that has anything to do with the owner, we're pulling in up top into the revenue section. So owner change orders, profit on the project, what we've billed to date, our earned profit, our over under billings, it's all going to be showing up here at the top. And then down below in the expenses section, this is our construction budget, and here's how we're spending money against our construction budget and starting to commit costs against our construction budget. So while the two are intertwined, we'll see the revenue section. Oh, there's my alarm to not be late to this training. Sorry about that. It was right in your ear. But we've got the revenue section up at the top, so that they are related, they are tied together. But we're going to see down below here, it's not going to include any of our overhead, or it's not going to include any of our profit. Our profit is going to live right up here in the projected profit. So, okay, so without further ado, we've got great stuff in this report. You'll notice that it has a lot of blue hyperlinks in it, which mean that we can drill down and get a little bit more information on anything that has a blue hyperlink. So right up here in the revenue section, we're going to see our original total contract value, the amount that our change orders are adding to the project with the revised total. And I can click on my blue hyperlink, and it's going to give me a breakdown of all of the change orders that I've included against my original contract value. That's getting me to my total cost to date, or total project value. Okay, so then we'll see that total project value up here as the revised total. My owner billings and retainage are going to be subtracted from that and give me my balance to complete. My projected profit is going to be my total contract value minus my projected costs is going to give me my profit. So when we click right here on budgeted profit, we get a drill down that's going to show us how much profit we've been able to add or take away through internal change orders and subcontractor and owner change orders. So we will have a breakdown right there of how much profit am I gaining or losing via internal change orders. So this is internal change orders is important here, because if we do an internal change order that takes money out of profit and puts it into a bucket because we busted a bucket, right? It's going to pull money out of profit. And so we'll see a dip in our profit if that happens with an internal change order and we don't go back into it. Maybe we have a contingency. We need to remember to go spend the contingency and drop that back down so that our profit stays the same. So, and then we'll also see here our owner and subcontractor change orders and the profit that we have built into our owner change orders. Okay, our earned profit will be right here in the earned profit section. And then our over and under billings is going to take how much we have billed plus the retainage held and how much we've earned to date and give us our over under. So the over under pulls from down here below, which is why I'm very over billed right now, because I don't have very many subcontractor bills. As you can see down here, I don't have very many subcontractors that have billed against their contract values. Because if our subcontractors are billing regularly, which hopefully they are, we should be processing those subcontractor bills. So it's pulling from our total cost billed down here by our subcontractors and the value that I have billed my owner. And that's how we're getting the over and under billings up here at the top section in the revenue section. So I'm going to pause real quick. And I'm going to take a look and see if we've got questions so far. Okay. All right. Any questions on the top portion on the revenue section? I don't have any in yet. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the expense section down at the bottom. This is for me, because I'm a former project manager. This part down here is the golden goose egg right here for me. I wish I would have had this report when I was a project manager. Okay, so this one is great. You'll notice that there are some themes here in the gray column headings that we will have seen when the project was back and will start soon. So of course, we've got all of our cost codes that are in the project right here. In the far left-hand column, our budgeted cost codes, and then our budgeted item descriptions, of course, and then our budgeted amount. So the budgeted amount, when we move a project forward from pending into will start soon as our buyout status. That's where we pause and we go through buyout and we put the amount of money in that we really intend to spend. So if we're doing some negotiating with subcontractors and we're buying things down, or we realize, hey, I made a mistake and I didn't put enough money in this bucket, or I've got to issue my subcontract for more than I initially thought because I didn't realize this over here. So as we're moving money around and we'll start soon, we're setting up the budget, the construction budget, how we intend to spend the money, which may be different than how we would present the cost to the owner. So during that buyout stage, we're either hopefully we're leaving our profit alone or we're increasing our profit, but we have occasion where we know that we're going to break a budget. Maybe we didn't have a solid number from a subcontractor, and when we got one, it was more than what we plugged the hole with when we were in the bidding process. And so we do have occasions where we may dip into our profit a little bit or dip into our contingency a little bit and add money to a cost item in the will start soon phase. So then if you'll recall, when we move the project from will start soon to in progress, it locks that construction budget down. And then any change that we have now, it's making a change to the construction budget that we set and will start soon. Okay, so that's what we see here in the budgeted amount. It's where we left the budget and will start soon. And that becomes our control budget now that we have the project move forward to in progress. So now any change, whether it is a subcontractor change or an internal change, is going to start to flow into the approved changes column. Our owner change order amounts are coming up here into the revenue section. So down below in expenses, it's pulling in the dollar value in a change order. If you'll, and I didn't pull open any change orders, but in a change order, when we go in and we have the owner price box and the subcontractor price box, it's pulling the information from the subcontractor price box into approved changes, and any amount in an internal change order gets pulled into approved changes and becomes part of our projected total cost. And again, we've got our blue hyperlinks here in projected total costs so that we can drill down and see, well, what's making up this $10,000? So we can click right here and I can see that this was an internal change amount. System accountant is my name, right? I'm logged in as our system accountant. This will be your name if you made the change, or if you're looking at this report and you'll see your project manager's name or whoever made the change here. And with the amount and the date that they did that. And so we'll see our original bid amount plus the change order value equals my new revised amount. So as we continue to add change orders, our list will grow right here. Okay, so then this is where we're going to continue to work from left to right on the report, and we get to our two new columns, which are the total cost committed and the balance to commit. So just about 10 days ago, we released these two new columns to the report because we did not have a way to show the total costs that were committed on this report. So for example, if I had written a purchase order for $80,000 of my rough carpentry package, if that invoice had not been paid out of my accounting software, I would have no total cost to date showing that I had anything committed at all. So my total balance to finish would be my total value over here in the rough carpentry package, even though I had a committed cost against it by a purchase order. And so I had asked our product team, is there any way that we can take the cost that we've had committed and add it to this report so this report can become our one source of truth for the project? And so we did that, and I'm really excited about it. So now any purchase order that we have where we've committed costs, it's going to show right here in the total cost committed column and give us a balance to commit. So now as a PM, I know, hey, I've written a purchase order for $1,050 on doors, frame, and hardware, and I have $23,000 more left to spend before I'm going to break my budget in this particular cost item. So we can come right here to the job cost statement and see what our true committed cost is. And then once the bills get paid, we're going to see that over here. So not only have I committed the cost, but I've paid the invoice and it's jumped into my total cost to date column. Okay, so I'm going to pause. Oh, what does it take to populate the billings? Jordan, do you mean owner bills or subcontractor bills? Lori says, finally, so grateful for the committed costs. Yay. Yes, that's awesome. I'm really excited too. Julie says the projected total cost is coming from the budget, correct? Yes, it's coming from the budget. So it's coming from the amount that we created as our construction budget, and we'll start soon, plus any change orders. So any sub change order or internal change order. And so it's going to take our original budget plus any change orders and get us our projected total cost. Okay, so I'm going to try and answer Jordan's questions on how do we populate the billings. So this is a great question in the revenue section. So I'll come back up here to revenue and then we'll talk about subcontractor just in case it was both. We'll cover both. So up at the top for owner billing, the owner bill has to be signed by the project manager, notarized or approved by an accountant in order to show up in the billed to date column up in the revenue section. So that's talking about an owner bill. It's got to be signed and it's got to be approved and or notarized by an accountant in order to show up at the top. Down below for a subcontractor bill to show in the total cost to date, that's going to be any approved subcontractor bill. So the subcontractor bill has to first be approved by a project manager, second has to be accepted by an accountant, and then once it's accepted, it pulls into the total cost to date. Okay, and that's a great point to for me to talk about here in the total cost committed column right here. As soon as we lock and sign a subcontract agreement, that's going to pull that total cost committed into the total cost committed column right here and move our balance to commit to 0. So we'll see that right here on wood flooring, where I've got that total value already committed out. Okay. Okay, reviewing our questions, guys. Thanks for your patience. How is the vendor invoice entered? Great question, Andrew. So we have 2 ways that a subcontractor invoice can be entered. We want the subcontractor to do it through their subcontractor portal. That's the easiest way for you guys to collect your subcontractor bills. So they will need a username and password to log into our subcontractor portal of Pasker. They have to sign their contract first, and then they'll be able to submit their subcontractor billing. So they will do it that way. You guys also have a way to enter a subcontractor bill on their behalf, as long as they have an executed subcontract agreement. So if you click on accounting and come right here to our approved sub billing section, you've got a button right here to add new sub bill. That's going to allow you to select a project and then enter a bill on their behalf, which will commit that cost in the system for you. So again, it has to go through the approval process, where if you're the project manager or the accountant and you guys are entering the subs bill on their behalf, project managers, yours gets approved right away, and then it goes to accounting for the accounting department to accept. Accountants, if you are entering the subcontractor's bill, you get to approve and accept in one fell swoop and get that cost committed to the project. And if you've got an integration, that's what will kick the subcontractor bill over to the accounting integration. So great question there. Is the total cost committed column only affected by purchase orders? No, it's affected by purchase orders, expenses, and subcontracts that are locked and signed. So that'll get us to our total cost committed in the total cost committed column. So again, any purchase order that has been approved, any field purchase order or expense that's added right here through the accounting expenses module right here. Okay, these become a committed cost, and then any subcontract agreement that has been locked and signed is going to push over as a committed cost, and it only has to be signed by the general contractor to be committed, right? If you guys are signing it and you're sending it to the subcontractor, we're considering it committed. So it'll push over as a committed cost once you sign it and send it on to the vendor, whether they've signed it yet or not. We will require them, if they're logging into the subcontractor portal to bill, we'll require that the subcontractor sign their subcontract agreement, of course, before they can bill you. So great questions. Okay, Kevin, you've got a great question. Once the sub signs their contract, is the best workflow to issue a purchase order to a sub? In our system, we call that a subcontract. So we would issue them a subcontract agreement, which is what I've got open right here on screen. So we're going to open the subcontract agreement. We're going to put in the retainage percentage. Pasker is going to auto-populate as much as we can for you. So everything that you see in bold here, we're pulling into the subcontract agreement for you. So then you're going to lock the contract and sign it and send it to them, and that will commit the cost in the job cost statement. So that would be our best practice there. Yeah, Lewis, great question. How do you enter material costs? So you enter material costs 2 ways. You're either going to come over here to purchase orders, and you're going to create a purchase order for your materials to your vendor. So if you've got your larger packages, like your doors, frames, and hardware, your specialties, your lumber, and we've got big packages of materials that we're purchasing, our best practice would be to come in and issue a purchase order to the vendor. And as soon as we approve that purchase order, it's going to commit the cost. The second way that you're going to add costs for materials is through expenses. So if you come to accounting and expenses, you're going to be able to commit costs through the expense module here. And we can do this a couple of different ways. We've got two scenarios real quick. 2 scenarios would be, we are running to Home Depot. We're going to grab a sack of concrete and a 2x4, and we're going to go put a mailbox in. Okay, so we're going to pay for that with a credit card as we check out. So as we complete the expense form, we're going to put in a payment method, which will be our credit card. We're going to put in a total, who submitted it. So this can be your superintendent, or if our project manager can do this, they can do it through the mobile app, which is awesome. And then they're going to cost code the item right here. So as soon as we choose the project, it's going to only allow us to choose a cost code that's being used in the budget of that specific project. So they can't just willy-nilly cost code a material to something that's not included in your budget already, which is awesome. And then they're going to be able to take a picture of their receipt, and they're going to drag and drop it into the expense, and they're going to submit it for approval. So once the expense gets approved and accepted, it commits the cost over in the job cost statement. So that's scenario one, where I'm going to Home Depot or whatever vendor, and I'm using a credit card to purchase. That's going to commit the cost. I will also use the expenses module for invoices that I get into the office for temporary power, temporary water, temporary fences, temporary toilets. We just get invoiced for those things on a monthly basis most of the time, but we need to come in through the expenses module and be able to commit that cost to the project, but I don't need to go write a purchase order for it. I just need to come to expenses and commit the cost. So you'll use the expense form to do that for both of those scenarios. So Lewis, hopefully that helps you there. Okay. Oh, Ben, you're asking a really good question. How do you account for services that are not contracted work? I would tell you that our best practice would be to get that work contracted with a subcontract agreement, but I'm assuming that you're talking about more of a time and material basis with the contractor for some of those types of situations. And that's an assumption. So if that's not a correct assumption, correct me in the chat here or in the Q&A. The easiest way to do that is still to have a subcontract and then just to issue them a change order for the time and materials that they're giving you a quote for. You do have the ability to sign a $0 contract, and then you would just be change ordering in the time and materials. But I wouldn't do it without a contract, even though they're on a time and materials basis. But that would basically be how we would do that. They would still have a .s subcontractor cost code, and they would still submit a subcontractor bill. So after you add a change order for their time and materials amount, they still need to go through the subcontractor portal and bill it to you. And then as soon as you approve and accept that bill, it's going to push their bill amount over into the total cost to date column in the job cost statement. Okay, great questions, guys. Thank you. Jill, you're asking a great question. We're taking a couple rabbit trails, but really good ones, you guys. So is it possible to make subcontractors submit their requirements before they can also bill? So I would say yes, it is possible, but you guys have to enforce it. So one of the things that we have the ability to do in the briefcase is add required documents. So this is essentially, it's not going to do it before they bill. We're actually making it mandatory before the project manager can even lock and sign a subcontract agreement. So if you have required documents that you need to have as an accountant before we even have billing that takes place, you can come right here to add a job document. And then right here is a magical box called required prior to locking a subcontract, which means that the subcontractor has to have uploaded their required documents before the project manager can even go to the subcontract list and lock the contract and sign it and send it to the sub. So I would request that you guys come in and utilize this tool if you want to make sure that you've got these documents received before subcontracts get locked. That ensures you that by the time the subcontractors are billing, you have everything you need, because the PM won't be able to even send them their contract agreement until we've collected what we need here. So you'll see right here on required documents. So some of the things that I put in required documents will be insurance documents. If this particular project requires a certificate of insurance with $1 million liability insurance umbrella, and we have to name the owner as additional insured and all those good things that we need to collect on a project, then you're going to upload a blank insurance form for the project. And then you're going to send it out to your list of subcontractors that you've already issued on the award subs page. So you can click the send button. It sends them a really nice email. It gives them instructions on how to upload right back into the system. And then when they do upload their documents, we'll see them right here in uploads. It'll be a blue hyperlink we'll be able to click on and see all the subcontractors that have submitted their forms. So that would be the way that I would do that. Oh, Ben, you clarified for me. Thank you. So Ben was asking his question on work that's not contracted for, like service work without material like cleaning. So cleaning is still a subcontract agreement. So I would still go to commitments and contract out where it is a full service. They're going to be supplying all of their materials and the labor to do the cleaning. So it's still a subcontractor cost, even if it's just labor only. It's still a subcontract. Okay. Oh, Tracy, you're asking a great question. After the expense form has been completed, does it auto send to the project manager for review or approval? Question one. I know you've got two parts to that. So no, it doesn't. So because if we had an email notification for every subcontractor bill and every expense that were entered into the system, we would pepper you guys with emails and you would start to ignore them. And so there is a method to our madness and not sending emails anytime an expense or a subcontractor bill has been submitted. What we did instead was come to the project dashboard. And right here on the project dashboard, we have subcontractor invoices right here, where it's going to show a number of invoices that have been submitted on this project that are waiting to be approved. So we have that right here. And then unsigned POs, it's giving us a list of all of the purchase orders that have been started but not finalized. And one of the things that I've asked them to add to this is also expenses that are pending. So we'll look for that to come in a little while, but that is a suggestion that I already have in to add expenses right here. Really, it's going to take more of an internal policy for your companies, and maybe you guys can set reminders on your calendars for maybe once a week going in and approving any subcontractor bills and any expenses that project managers have on their particular projects. They can filter down to seeing only the projects that they're working on when they get to the expenses module into the sub billing module. So that makes it a little easier for them to go right down through their projects and approve everything for the accounting department that you guys need. Second question is, after project manager approval, what is the process to send to accounting for payment? So after the approval process in the expenses module, it goes to the accountants for your approval. So accountants, when you log in, you'll see them just like this. They're already approved by the project manager, but they're waiting to be accepted by an accountant. So when they're accepted, then they're going to be ready to go into the accounting software for payment. So if you guys have QuickBooks integrations, or if you have a Sage 100 integration with us, as soon as it's accepted by the accountant is when it pushes over to QuickBooks and over to Sage 100. So that is when those move over for you. Okay, Joey, you're asking a question on how do we record internal work? Through a purchase order and through time cards. So materials will get entered through an expense or a purchase order, as I already mentioned. And labor, you guys are going to be tracking time against time cards. So right here in time cards, we have a mobile application. If you supers haven't downloaded that, please have them go to the App Store and download the RedTeam Go app. And they're going to be able to enter their time cards and daily logs from the mobile app. So you're seeing here, I have some time cards that have already been submitted from the field that I need to approve. So once project managers approve the time cards, that pushes over to my job cost statement. Okay, you guys can also enter time for your teams by clicking on the enter time button right here, choosing the project, and then you can go back in time and create a time card And then you're going to choose the employee, the number of hours, and the cost code. And again, it's only going to give them the cost codes for labor for that specific project. And then we're going to submit the daily hours. So then they show it back over here on approved time, and we're going to come right through, check the box and approve them. And that pushes over to the job cost statement. Oh, Julie, good question. Julie is asking, is there a place to enter project manager, designer, and superintendent wages? Yes, there's 2 places to do that, which is also a very good question. The first is right here in time cards, right where we're at. So this is a good segue. So in time cards, we have, that's another thing I'll show you too, but we have employee rates. So what happens when we create a time card is we put in a number of hours, and then we've got a wage rate for each one of our employees. So it takes number of hours times employee wage rate, and that's the value that it's going to push over into our job cost statement, and also the value that it's going to ask if we want to include in our owner pay applications. So that's what happens with our number of hours times this employee wage rate. We also know that you guys may have variable rates depending on the project. And so one of the things that we did when we rebuilt the project dashboard was down here where your GC team is located, you have a little, it looks like an alarm clock with a $ in it to me. But if you click on the little $ right here, it's going to allow you to choose a different wage rate than that of the one that we put over under accounting time cards that will be specific to this project. So you can come down through here and change your employee wage rate specific to this project. And then any hours worked on this project will multiply by this wage rate and feed over into this job cost statement. So we can either do it for the website as a whole, or we can do it on an individual project basis. So great question, Julie. Oh, Ben is asking if we add required documents, does it send to all subcontractors, just the ones on the job, or all future subs? The required documents is project specific. So you're going to see a list of the subcontractors specific to that project, and there will be a send button for each document that'll have all the subcontractors' names auto-populated in that one email to send all at one time. So you will have to make sure that you come to the award subs page and go through the award subs page and award all your subs first, and then go to required documents and hit the send button next to the required document to send it to all your subs at the same time on this specific project. Great question. Oh, if the required forms are downloaded from required documents, will the system know that they've been downloaded and allow the project manager to move forward? No, because we go on not whether they've been downloaded, but whether they've been re-uploaded back into the system. So if we reverse your question and we say, if the subcontractor has re-uploaded their completed forms into the required documents, does it allow the project manager to move forward? And that question answered is yes. So as long as the program is smart enough to know that so-and-so subcontractor has uploaded their form, they have a magic link on their portal of Tasker where we know it's them. And so we can say, John Smith Construction has submitted their required document, and it will let us go ahead and lock the John Smith subcontract and execute that one. So yes, it does know that. Okay. We've got another question on expenses and how do we edit expenses once they've been submitted? So let's take a look at that real quick. So again, we're going to come to accounting and expenses, and they can only be edited after they've been approved, after they've been accepted. They can only be modified by an accountant because it goes last first. And I have a couple of warnings here. If you have an accounting integration, you need to be very in touch with the accountant, because if we're going into the expenses module and we unaccept an expense and we change it and we haven't deleted it from our accounting software, it's going to try to push again once it gets accepted again, and it will fail. So if you have an accounting integration, it's going to be really important that the accountant remove it from the accounting software or void it whatever you need to do. It's different for Sage 100 than it is for QuickBooks. And then you'll come into RedTeam Go and you're going to click on the ellipse icon right here. And then you will have an unaccept button. Accountants will have an unaccept button. So you'll unaccept it and then you'll click on the edit button and you'll be able to edit it. You'll re-accept it and it will re-push it back over to your accounting software and correct it over on the job cost statement. Okay, Niz, you've got a great question. I am the accountant for our company and I have approved an owner billing. However, it does not show the value on the bill to date section of the job cost statement. Is there a delay for this statement to be updated or should it be reflected right away? That's a great question. So our job cost statement, if you've worked much with the job cost statement yet, you'll notice that, hey, I may be doing some things and they're not showing on my job cost statement yet. It updates on the hour, every hour. So it does have a little bit of a delay before things tend to migrate into this particular report. That's one of the things that we're looking at being able to adjust with our program here, is that it won't wait for every hour on the hour. It'll do it as seamlessly as we're approving, it's pushing in here. So we are working on a solution to get the items that you're approving in this document faster. So stay tuned for an update on that, which we probably will just push out under the bell icon on your dashboard when it's ready. We probably won't have another webinar. So right here on your global dashboard, anytime we have a product update, we push an announcement right here. So please come here to look for any product announcements. Periodically, if you see a number 1 right here, we're ringing the bell. Okay, so come in here and look at any of the product updates. That's how you're going to be in the know without us having to send you an email every time we go in and make any minor tweaks to the system. But stay tuned for that. It does update right now every hour on the hour. Oh, great question. Yeah, let me go back to the job cost statement here for this next question. Okay, here it comes. When an invoice for material is entered in RedTeam in the expense section, how is that flowing into the accounting system? That's question number 1. So as soon as it's approved and accepted is when it pushes over to QuickBooks. We do not integrate with Xero. I'm not sure what program that is. We only have integrations with QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online, and Sage 100. Second question is, would it show in the bank register as if it were paid, or will the bill be created affecting A&P? I may not know the answer to the second part of your question. So for the integration, we would just push the information over into the accounting software, and then you will finalize it in the accounting software and pay it. When it's paid, if you have an integration, it will pull that payment information back into the job cost statement. If you have QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, it'll work with everything except for time. Okay, so let me show you this right here. So if I click on my amount to date, if I have a QuickBooks integration, it's going to pull back the payment date, the check number, and the payment amount for the invoice that I've paid. And same with our owner billing. If I have written a check, or if my owner has cut a check and I've recorded that I have received payment and the check number, check date, payment date, it's going to pull all that information back into the job cost statement as well. So hopefully I answered that question. Julie, you asked, that info will not push into QuickBooks, correct? And I don't know what the question was for me to clarify that for you. So if you'll clarify that for me again, that will help me. What if the owner pays in multiple checks? So that's a really hard one, Julie. If the owner pays in multiple checks, I would tell you to void and revise the owner bill and split it into two owner bills so that you can record each payment against the correct invoice. That way your next owner bill, you'll have the current balance due. It gets really tricky if the owner decides to pay us in multiple checks because it is with the QuickBooks integration for QuickBooks Desktop, which if I remember correctly, that's the one that you have. It's going to only allow for one recording for that bill, I believe. So that one, I would say that our best practice would be probably to void and revise the one owner bill and split it into two, so that each bill matches the check payment that you received from your owner, if that makes sense. Okay, Ben's asking a question on the projected profit right here, or the budgeted profit. Right, profit projection. Okay, so right here, if we click, we're going to see the internal change orders and the owner change orders that include your subcontractor change orders. Are you asking, Ben, for a breakdown of which internal change orders and which owner change orders are making up these values? I think that's probably what you're asking. I have a question that I'm going to ask to our product team to see if there's a way for us to list them here, same as how we list them down here below. If we could list them by internal change order number 4 or owner change order number 1, I'm going to ask if that can be put up in the budgeted profit drop down as well. Would that help? Oh, you're talking about projected profit on the dashboard. Okay. So depending on your role in the company, your rights and responsibilities with the company, depends on what you see here as projected profit. If you're a project manager, you'll see the projected profit for all of the jobs that you are the project manager on. If you are an executive with the company, you get to see the company information as a whole. So your profit is going to pull in you're talking on the project dashboard. Got you. Hang on. Okay, so the projected profit that we see here should be the projected profit from the job cost statement as well. Okay, and that pulls directly from our budget report. So I'll check on the answer to that question, Ben. Yeah, I agree. It would be helpful to see that breakdown. Ben just said it would be helpful to see that on that report. So going back to the job cost statement, how I was saying right here that it would be nice to see the breakdown of which internal change orders and which owner change orders. So I'll see if we can do that. Julie, yes, I will. Okay, Danielle is asking, what is the best way to accrue expenses for subs and materials in RedTeam? For example, a sub performed the work, but has yet to invoice for the work. Materials have been supplied, but an invoice has not been received. I would hound them to get their bills in. We don't have a way to account for them aside from, I mean, you can go ahead on the owner bill and you can go ahead and bill your owner for them. And you can bill ahead of getting the subcontractor bills in if you needed to do that. But I would say that the easiest thing to do here, so in the total cost committed column right here, if we've written a subcontract amount for the full value, it's already going to be committed against the project. And then if same for materials, we only have materials for things that we're self-performing. So if we are going ahead with an expense in the expenses module and we're committing a cost in the expenses module, that's going to pull right here into the committed costs. If it's already been paid for with a credit card, it's going to float right over here to the total cost to date. But if it's sitting in QuickBooks with an open payable, it won't show up in total cost to date until the invoice has been paid. So we'll see the total cost to date start to grow as invoices over in QuickBooks are paid and closed out. So it depends on what kind of material it is. If it's been paid for again by a credit card and we're recording it through an expense in the expenses module, it's going to pull right over into total cost committed and total cost to date. So I hope that answers your question. If not, let me know and I will do my best to clarify for you. Oh, McGuire, you're asking a great question. McGuire is saying that right here in the build to date column that voided bills are showing up on the list. And if they're showing up on the list, is the best thing to do to click the trash can and remove them. Yes. If the voided bills are showing up right there, yes, I would say that's the easiest thing to do. It could be if they're still showing as voided over in QuickBooks that it's still going to show it over here. So yes, go ahead and click the trash can and clean that up. That is correct. Oh, drilling into expenses on the job cost statement, Kevin, great question. Drilling into the expenses on the job cost statement, he expected to see the PDFs, but he isn't seeing the receipts. So no, those don't pull over here into the job cost statement. Those live on the expenses under accounting and expenses. So the thumbnails of the actual or even the PDFs won't show up when we drill down here. We don't have enough room to do all of that here in this section. So that still lives with the expense, which you can get to from right here. If you click on purchase orders, it gives you a list of all of your cost commitments, whether it's a subcontract, purchase order, or expense, and you'll be able to click into them from here or from accounting expenses. You'll be able to get back to the full version of the PDF with the thumbnail of the receipt attached. Great question. Oh, Ben, great questions, you guys. Ben's asking, if a project manager enters an expense on the mobile app, it automatically approves it and it is not editable except by an accountant. That is true because of your login credentials. So how we've designed the program to work is if a project manager submits an expense, you have a save and approve button if you do it through the desktop. So if you're doing it through the mobile app, it knows your login and that you have project manager rights. So if you're a project manager and you're submitting it through the mobile app, then it's not going to make you come to the desktop to approve it because you're you and you're special as a project manager. So you're right in that the accountant has to be the one to edit it at that point. And then make that change. So that may seem like a pain, but that was the method to our madness was to help save you time in being able to do that directly from the mobile app, have it approved and get to accounting right away. So you are correct there. Ooh. Jennifer Shore, if you will, email me with your project name so we can take a look at that. You guys, my email address is T Vandalsem, V like Victor, A-N as in Nancy, D-A-L-S-E-M @redteam.com. And Jennifer, email me your project name so I can look at that for you. Julie, you're asking a great question. Julie Schmidt, you're asking, is there a good work in progress report for all projects going on that we can run at the end of the month? Yes, there is. If you're an accountant, if you go to accounting, and I'm not logged in right now as an accountant, you guys, so mine isn't going to look exactly how an accountant's would. So, but if you click on accounting and you click on reports, you will have a WIP report. And you'll be able to run your WIP report, which is accumulation of all your current projects. So that is where you'll kind of get that global view on one report. So you'll put in your start date and your end date, and then you'll click the generate report button. And you have a wait right here to export it to Excel as well. And then you'll also see right here that you have a summary report for non-accountant-y people like myself. The summary report is is awesome because there's a lot of columns on the WIP report, and I don't have an accountant background. And so I need the simplicity of the summary report, which just gives the high level overview of the WIP report for non-accountancy folks like myself. So you have the ability to have the full-blown report, which is exportable to Excel, or you have the summary report, both as options there. Lewis, you're asking a great question. Is there a way to enter a sub invoice that does not have a subcontract? We have several subs that work on more of a time and materials basis that bill us weekly. We don't have a way to enter a subcontractor invoice unless they have a locked and signed subcontract agreement. So that's where I was saying a little earlier, even if you issue a $0 change order to the sub, issue a $0 contract to your sub, that you would then take their time and material amount and add it through a change order and then let the subcontractor bill you for the amount of their time and material, which you issued through a change order. So that would be the way that I would handle that situation. We won't be able to even come to accounting, sub-billing, enter sub-bill if they don't have a signed agreement. So we either have to have an electronically signed agreement through the system, or we have to have imported a contract that they would have ink signed. We have to scan it and import it in and fake the system to think that we've got an electronically signed contract. So as long as there's one imported, or there's a fully executed electronically signed subcontract agreement, we can enter a sub bill on their behalf, or they can bill us through their portal as well. An invoice will pull to committed. Julie is asking, will an invoice pull to committed? It will when it's approved and accepted. Yes. When you enter an expense as an invoice, it will show in the committed column, but it will not show in the total cost to date column until it's been paid. So let me pull this back up and answer that again. Julie is asking, when you enter an expense as an invoice, so imagine I've got an invoice for porta potties that I've submitted and I want to commit that cost against the project. As soon as I approve the expense, it's going to show in my total committed costs, but until I pay the invoice out of QuickBooks, it won't show up here in my total cost to date, if that makes sense. So it's going to let me know that I've committed it right here, but until I pay the invoice, it won't show up in my total cost to date because it's not a cost yet until I actually spend the money to pay it. Okay, Julie Schmidt, if you go to your profile and click on company settings and click on your name, you should see whether you have the accountant box checked, and that will show whether you're the accountant. If you are not the accountant and you need to be the accountant, you'll have to have an administrator of your website check your box for you. Or if you're an administrator, you can check your own box. Okay, you do have to be an accountant to see the WIP report. Great question. Okay, RedTeam Go / Pasker family. I think I've gotten to almost all the questions. Okay, I think I've got them all. If I missed any of them, I will make sure when we finalize the webinar today that I get them answered, and then we'll circulate those Q&As so that everybody's got copies of them. So thanks for participating today, everybody. I really appreciate your time, and to get to at least see your names and get you guys asking questions and talk to you through this webinar a little bit today. One last thing that I want to point out is when our subcontractor bills that we are getting in through the system, as we're accepting and approving them, They're going to show up right here for us as well in the total cost to date column, anticipating that we're planning on paying them what they've billed. If we're not planning on paying them what they've billed, we need to reject the bills before they get to this status, allow the subcontractor to resubmit the bill to you for what you do plan on paying them, and then approve and accept them so that the total cost to date matches what you do intend to spend paying them. And then that's going to tell you the total percent of costs billed to you. And then that's going to feed up in here and show us our under or overbilled. So I'm grossly overbilled to my owner right now because I don't have very many subcontractor bills that have been recorded against my expenses below. So hopefully that makes sense. You do have your print button up here at the top of the report, so it will print a PDF of this report for you. And again, you've got your date filter. So hopefully our time together was beneficial for you guys to be able to ask some questions on cost commitments and the different ways that you can go about getting those into the system so that they feed into your job cost statement correctly, so that this can become a total view of where you are at with your costs for this project. This would have been life-changing for me to have. So I really hope that you guys realize the benefits of this report and that your project managers are just super stoked about having it at their fingertips for every single project that you have, and accountants that you are excited about having the WIP report. So the WIP report that we have in the system is directly fed. It's directly fed from the information here in the job cost statement. So that's important for you guys to know too. So again, I'll say it, the WIP report is fed by the information here in the job cost statement. So making sure that the job cost statement is accurate is a really important task to do, especially for those of you that have a QuickBooks integration where we're able to push information to QuickBooks and have it pull back information into this job cost statement. So where McGuire had his question on, hey, you know, I'm looking here at the owner bills and I see some voided bills that are still in here. Do I need to click on my trash can to remove them from this project? And the answer is yes. And so likewise, you may also need to come to your total cost to date and just make sure that you don't have any costs pulling in twice. The best practice is you put the expense in through Pasker and let it push over to QuickBooks, because if you are putting it in QuickBooks and then you're coming back in and you're putting it in RedTeam Go, and you're going to hear me, I'm still learning, you guys. Rebranding only happened a month ago and I'm still calling it Pasker. I can't erase 15 years. It's coming. But here in RedTeam Go, if we've got to make sure that we have the information in RedTeam Go, it pushes over to QuickBooks. But if we put it in QuickBooks and then we come back and we put it in RedTeam Go, it's going to duplicate the expense, and it's even going to push it over to QuickBooks again because it didn't originate in RedTeam Go and push over to QuickBooks. So we need to make sure that we clean up any duplicates in QuickBooks and that we delete any duplicate that we have in the total cost to date that might be pulling in because we accidentally entered it in both places. So you do need to spend a little bit of time reconciling your reports and just making sure that you're coming in. I would do it on a weekly basis just so that it doesn't run away with you, and make sure that you don't have any expenses that are duplicating in the system. The last thing that I'll mention is if you have a QuickBooks integration and you have some red warning signs that are pulling up here into the very top of the job cost statement, it is because we have costs over in QuickBooks. If you've got an integration, it's because we have costs over in QuickBooks that are not cost coded to any cost codes in our project in RedTeam Go. And so it's asking you, I see costs over here in QuickBooks. Where do you want to put them in the cost codes that are included in your RedTeam Go budget? And it's going to let you click on a drop down to assign it to a cost code where you want to pull in that expense to. So that will happen for those of you who may do an integration even after you've been an established client of ours for a long time and you decide later that you want to do an integration sometimes, or if you started the project over in QuickBooks before you've started the project over here in RedTeam Go, a lot of times you will have things that have been committed cost over in QuickBooks that they may not be in the cost coded at all, or to a cost code that we didn't include in the budget in the system when we built it in the system. So you'll see those as well. Okay. All right, well, that's all I have for you today. So if you guys have any follow-up questions, again, you can have my email address. It's tvandalsum@redteam.com. Feel free to send me an email so that we can talk more about the job cost statement And I hope that this is a really helpful tool for you and your teams in managing your projects. So we'll have a recording available in a couple of days. Again, that we'll send that out via email from our marketing team. So look for the recording to be coming so that you can share it with your teams. And if you need anything, please don't hesitate to let us know. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We're inching closer to the weekend. Have a great weekend this weekend. Enjoy the weather, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.